What's up, Tawna? How are you?
Hi, I am so great. I am very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Every time I see you sprinting around in the gym, I just think about when I was using you for posing and just flying into Texas, being like, "Hi, can I please come see you at this random ballet studio that you're at?" And just it's so funny. Like you're one of those people that was very pivotal for me in my bodybuilding experience, whether I've told you that or not. Like my
No,
posing just went from dog shit to quality. And so
I love it.
So anyway, if you guys are looking for posing, shameless plug, Tana's phenomenal. But I wanted to bring you on because while you have your hands in a lot of things, I at least have had the pleasure of kind of watching you from the sidelines go from somebody that, in my opinion, just has phenomenal stage presence, posing, and just watching you go through like an explant surgery, removing yourself from competing, and of course, gym ownership. So I would love for you to just kick it off with, you can obviously share the gym that you own, but your background in just dabbling in competing as a whole, where you were in your life, what that looked like, what the landscape looked like.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the kind words. And that is so sweet. And for the record, if I'm sprinting in the gym, it's from thing to thing, not because I'm sprinting.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah, agreed.
Your girl doesn't sprint.
Oh,
But anyways, yes, thank you so much for that intro. Very sweet. Yeah, I was introduced to competing from my loving husband, Greg, who was my trainer. And my first competition ever was in 2010. And I turned pro that very next year in 2011. And I went on to get 4 IFBB pro wins. 5 times I competed at the Olympia with top 8 finish being my best. And 2 times I competed at the Arnold. And my last show was in 2018, and that was Olympia.
that's just so cool. I mean, even saying that out loud, I know you know it, like it's happened to you, but just saying that you've been on the Olympia stage, how does that feel?
It feels surreal to me because it is the Super Bowl of the bodybuilding world. It's literally like the top of the top, the elite. And to even say that I've been in the top 10 of that is what I fought and worked my ass off for. And I'm honored to say that I am an Olympian in 5 times, let alone. And it's still surreal. I'm still very proud of that accomplishment. And even though I am done competing, um, I am I'm really happy and excited I got to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, your stage presence was always so memorable to me. And I know that you do a lot with fit or fashion and things like that on your page. So I feel like it's just very much you. But stage presence, phenomenal, right? And so I think back to how did you get into posing coaching and all of that? Because I mean, I know you still do that today.
Yeah, so performing has literally been something that I have done since I was 3 years old. And I did everything from tap, jazz, ballet, dance to then gymnastics to cheerleading, all types of sports. And I also did beauty pageants. Um, and that is where my performance came from and my stage presence. And then that is how I then became a posing coach for other fitness bikini girls. I didn't feel right personally coaching until I had turned pro. I just felt like it was more of that stamp of approval because there's not a certification or anything you can do. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like I'd had years of experience of actually performing and being on stage, and in different worlds to then there and turning pro. And I wanted to be able to give that, whatever you want to call it, God-given talent and help other women, because it is a big factor in competing. And what I really loved about it the most too was that not only in on stage for performing in beauty pageants or dance or a bodybuilding show, but it carries over into everyday life. How do you carry yourself in a presentation for your job or at work or walking through the door and hopefully running into your soulmate. You know, like this carries over into every aspect of your life. It's poise, it's confidence. And I wanted to give that back to other women. And that's why I love to do that.
That's so true. When you go into bodybuilding with a clear headspace for the right reasons, right? I feel like it's such a time to just gain confidence because whether you feel good in, I don't know, in front of a crowd, like in the work office or whatever, there's just something so different about strapping on heels, strutting your stuff. And like, I just remember, even the simple things of just, you're overthinking everything when you're new to it, right? Like your wrists move or they don't move, or like you're stiff here and not there. And so I think when you really can just master that, that was my favorite part of competing, not the day, not peak week, not the lifting, but like truly getting out of my comfort zone with that. And so I agree, absolutely. And I think that you do such a great job with all of that and those transformations. So I want to ask you, with all of the years that you competed, right? I don't think that I know the full story of like the explant and why that happened. I remember the symptoms and how you're feeling, but not the full story. So I want you to take me back to what you started noticing and kind of your exit from bodybuilding.
Yeah. So, and I do like, cause I'll try to like trim it up in a nutshell so we don't take too much of this time. I do also have a YouTube video,
Yes.
that explains all of it in depth. So if any of your listeners, and including you, Taylor, want to go back and review that, and I do way down in my post, if you want to do some digging, I've been very open. I feel that that is a part of the reason that that situation had to happen to me, is because I am open, I am honest, I'm not bashful, I have a voice, I have a platform, and it was my duty to talk about that. So I have talked about it. If any of the listeners want to go and check that out, just do a little digging. But yes, in 2018, I competed at the Olympia in September. It was my last show because pretty much that next February, which was 2019, I just wasn't feeling good. And it was beyond anything of like, oh, I'm just tired because my cortisol levels are annihilated and my adrenal glands are like, are shot. It was like, 14-hour a day sleep sessions with some naps here and there. And just weird, crazy symptoms started to happen. And I go into all of those symptoms on those videos. But it was probably into April, we'll fast forward. So February or end of January, February, I was like, something's not right. Something feels really off with me. Things are crazy. To then end of February, March, and beginning of April, it was like downhill bad, basically bedridden, horrible symptoms, doctor's appointment after doctor's appointment. My mom had to come and stay with us for a little while, so that she could help take care of me, because ironically, at that same moment that I got sick, we also signed our contract to take over the gym, which is now Hidden Gym. So our new venture and project for me had to be put on the back burner because I had to put all my efforts into figuring out what in the actual fuck is going on with me. Excuse my French, but what's happening, my life became my health and figuring out what's going on. And Greg took the reins on, I'm going to get the gym up. I did countless doctor's appointments. I saw specialists, I saw neurologists, I had all kinds of blood work done. I am talking everything from Lyme disease to regular blood work to autoimmune markers. I mean, just whatever. I pulled it. I said, I don't care, pull it all. I ended up, actually, fun fact, not fun, but I ended up, because I did so much blood work, this vein can no longer be used because it has so much scar tissue on it. And it's a big, fat, juicy one too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Just so you know how many times I was poked and prodded.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it was bad, really bad. There were times I didn't even know if I was going to wake up bad. Fast forward after doctors, specialists, neurologists, all kinds of different people tell me everything is beautiful. Markers are great. Your blood works fine. Everything's normal. Your brain scan is normal. Your spinal tap, everything is normal. I had seen, actually at that time, really the only person that I had known that removed their implants was Courtney King, and her and I competed together for many years. So I reached out to her. We talked a little bit about it. And then I started researching it. And when I researched it, I was like, oh, it's not only Courtney King. There's like thousands of girls out here who are saying, I also have XYZ, ABC, verbatim words that I've described that are going on with me. So I also reach out to these girls and have phone calls and conversations to where I said, screw it. I have no idea if this is what's wrong with me. I have no idea if this is going to work. There's not a test or any kind of anything you can do to know if you have breast implant illness, BII, or issues with your implants. You really just have to get in there, remove them, and hope for the best. And at that point, I was so desperate for some sort of answer. I said, take them out. Take them out. So at the end of April 24th, actually, of 2019, I removed my implants. And I had no freaking clue if it was going to work. I just knew it was one more thing I was checking off my list to go, is this it or is it not it? Because I don't want to question it at this point. Nobody knows. And I became my own advocate. So I removed my implants. And I would say, and you can go back and look at those, you've probably seen them instantly within 9 hours of removing. I mean, it was hard. It's hard to tell in the first 9 hours what you're feeling because you're so doped up on freaking anesthesia and drugs and pain pills and stuff. You're just like, I don't know how I feel. I feel amazing because I'm all loopy, but I also feel like crap. So it was the visible me laying down at home 9 hours after surgery. Greg came to give me some crackers, water, and my next dose of pain meds. And he just jaw dropped and said, baby, you need to get up. You need to see this. And he was talking about the way that I looked. My complexion came back. My eyes were bright. My eye color came back. I have blue-green eyes. My eyes were like gray. I had no life in me. I looked like the Walking Dead, and I felt that way. And it was just a visible difference of what had happened. And then it was like each week and each day and each month that went by, I kept getting better and better and better and better. Now, I will also say, what I have found in thousands, maybe I haven't talked to thousands of girls. I've seen thousands of girls through Facebook groups and stuff like that, but I have talked to hundreds of girls. Mine is an extreme case. And I think mine was an extreme case because I did send my, the scar tissue that your implants form. It's inevitable. If you have breast implants, you have the scar tissue. It's a capsule. They send those off to pathology to be tested for any kind of bacterial infections or growths, and even which is very terrifying, a cancer that has been directly correlated with breast implants. They are the textured ones, but still it's not to say it couldn't happen with the other ones. So they send it off to test for all of that. And mine did have a bacteria growing on them. So it grosses me out to think about it because I even found my implants not too long ago because I kept them for legal reasons in case there was ever a lawsuit. I found them not too long ago, and there is actual literal like mold and growth, and it makes my skin crawl to think that that was inside my body growing. And The only thing that the doctors could say at that point is, well, now we know why, because every girl gets sick from it, or not every girl, but a lot of girls, they'll get sick from it. But why was I so deathly ill? And they think that maybe that bacteria got into my bloodstream and it kind of essentially made me sepsis.
That's wild. And I remember that because I remember it probably was the 9 hour, whatever comparison you did. Like I remember seeing that.
Wild. I
Yeah.
still look at it this day and I'm like, how?
Yeah. I hope that you celebrate April 24th every year, you know?
I
Um,
do. I do. I
yeah.
do personally. And I used to like get on and announce and do that. And then I just kind of, I don't know, I just kind of started to say, you know what, I'm going to do this for me, and I want to be there and help. And I will always share my story. But I just kind of got to a place to where I felt like,
Sure.
yeah.
So how did you go from that to deciding that you weren't going to compete again? Because it wasn't as easy, I'm sure, as just they came out and you were totally fine. So like, how did you connect that, or what did that look like?
Well, so getting off stage at Olympia in 2018, I was on fire. Like I was lit up, like internally. Like I was like, I'm ready to freaking do this again. Let's go get it. Off season, here we come. We're gonna go back to the Olympia for 2019. I was ready. I was rocking. I was driven, and just excited. And so, to be honest with you, I had no intentions of being done with competing at that time, but my health forced me to sit down. And to be honest with you, I tried to get back to it multiple times. And it probably was not until 2021 where I said, okay, like literally, we're done. Like every time I tried to get back into working out or doing something else would happen. I, had to have another surgery because sadly, my breast tissue adhered to my rib cages. That sometimes can happen when your implants, they push your natural breast tissue in a bunch of different funky ways. And so when we just removed the implant as well as the capsule, and we think that we're fine. But what had happened was that some of my breast tissue had adhered to my rib cages. And so when I did work out, it was literally pulling my rib cage apart, and it was causing what they call costochondritis, which is the cartilage between your ribs was literally being expanded and rubbed. And it almost just felt like a big, huge elephant came and like sat on my chest and squeezed me. And it was just awful. So I had to have another surgery to get all my natural breast tissue off of my ribs, set into the pockets, and like how boobies are supposed to be. And then it was like, neck injury. I had a C4 disc herniation. And then lastly, the last thing that did it into me and that really sent me in for a loop was I tore my foot. I tore my plantar fascia. And I think that that's when I said, you know what, we're done. We're done. This body,
so much,
yeah, my poor body had been already through so much just in general competing. Then from being sick and for so many years, and then going through all of that, the multiple surgeries, too much. So it was time to hang up the heels, literally. And so that was really hard because that wasn't my goal. And I kept thinking that I was going to be able to make it back, but my body, my health, and now what I feel is God had different plans for me.
And maybe it didn't have to be injuries or whatever, but I really do believe that when something keeps fighting you, listen to it, right? Like I really do believe in that, for you, it was multiple really irritating injuries, but I agree. So because that was such a big part of your life and your just who you are, right? Like when I see you, that's what I think of. Like I associate you with bikini and competing and all of that, right? And so as somebody who had been in the space and so engrossed in it and such a high level, like how did you start to kind of find a new identity or just remove yourself from that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say that was so hard because naturally to myself, it was my identity and I put all my efforts into it. I mean, it's why I went to the level that I did. Like, you put your all into it, and especially in the fitness and bodybuilding world, like that's what it takes. But I think it was an adjustment period, and it wasn't really until 2021 where it all kind of fell on me. And it's like, oh, like this is it, this is done. And granted, we had our gym. I still believe in having your own individual things that you do. And so it's like, yes, the gym is our business and that's our livelihood. And that's something that Greg and I do together. We are also big advocates for having our own personal goals and ambitions and things and passions that we go after. And so I'm left with, now what? Now what do I do? Now what do I put my efforts into? And that took a while, and that was really, really hard. And I think I even went, I don't think that's a complete lie. I 100% went through a depression. That was super hard, especially when it's like, it just all comes to a screeching halt, right? It's different when you kind of plan your exit. It's another thing when it's like, you're doing this, and done. Like, I had no exit at that time. There would have eventually been an exit, but I just wasn't ready for that. So that was a big culture shock for me. But transitioning, I just started to say, okay, I'm really going to put a lot of my efforts into being a gym owner, which I had been, but a lot of my focus was on being a professional athlete. And then that's when I started to kind of go out and start to reach for different goals. And then in most recent year, I signed with a modeling agency. And that is one of the other like passions and things that I have always done and wanted to do. And I said, okay, now's my time to do it. I do have the time for it. I mean, more or less time for it. Do any of us have time for anything? It feels like no. But the extra thing that you do that makes your heart pitter patter is why I do it. And so I'm trying to do other things like that to make Tawna go happy. Yeah, to make her happy,
Make her yeah, I mean, that's what we're all trying to do, right? Just make ourselves happy. And kind of like I mentioned at the beginning of this, right? One of the, I guess the biggest purpose I wanted, or reason I wanted to do this episode with you, not just for your story. And I'm going to link your YouTube video in the show notes just to make everyone's life easier. So they're not like aimlessly searching, because Lord knows what's on the interwebs, because I've heard of at least 5 or 6 women that had almost identical experiences as you. Like, if anything, I've only seen like the pretty intense cases, but I wanted to do this was because of the identity thing. And even personally, not the bodybuilding so much, but when I left TV and started, fitness coaching, I had a really hard time with that to other people, not to me. But for probably a year and a half, somebody would say, hey, what do you do? Like, what's your job? And I'd be like, well, I used to be a TV reporter and now I do this. Like, I couldn't just say what I did because it didn't feel.
I get it. Yeah.
I was like, well, that sounds dumb. I'm a fitness coach. Like, that wasn't good enough in my head yet, even though that's 100% where I was going when I wanted. I was like, no, that sounds lame versus telling somebody that I do investigative reporting.
Yep. I get it, Tay. I get it. No, and it makes so much sense. And I think I love that you said that, actually, seriously, because there's so much societal pressure to be this, if you're not a lawyer, if you're not a doctor, if you're not of some kind of caliber. But it's like, I'm sorry, who has this rule book of what caliber, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's why a lot of people are not happy in their life or struggle to find happiness, is because they're not doing what truly makes their heart pitter patter. They're doing what they think they should be doing based on other people's opinions of what they should be doing, instead of just going after and doing what makes your heart go. Stop trying to like like, if you don't want to be a boss CEO, then don't try to be one just because that's like the trend right now. Like, does that make your heart go? Does that make your heart go? Or is that just a trend like Femi vibes? Because trends go in, trends go out. And I mean, and on that, like, I mean, it's like, I know it's awesome. And there is a little, I'm an entrepreneur myself as a female, but at the end of the day, you can't ignore primal instincts. And females are not necessarily meant to just go out there and slave over the day. And, you know, like, we have some primal instincts too. So don't fight that. You know what I mean? So, anyways, that's my tangent on that.
No, the tangent is good. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love doing this. But you know, I do think with working with as many coaches as I do, like, we are all still in that bucket where the generation above us, all of our parents, right? The idea was go to school, get the degree, do the thing, retire, right? And for me, competing was my outlet. It wasn't my identity, but it became like, oh, that's the fit TV reporter. Like, I will never forget when I had been out of TV for at least a year or so, and someone had sent me this, like, hey, have you seen this Reddit thread about you? And I'm like, no. And it was this picture of me like reporting, and it was like, is this reporter natty? And I'm like, what is, I need to find that. That'll also be linked in the show notes. This Reddit thread.
God.
So like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Who does those? Like,
and yes, the answer was yes. Okay. I was just like,
yeah,
to show, I believe. But it's just funny because, you know, my identity was like the fit reporter. That's what I did. And
right.
I don't want to say that and now I don't even think twice about that, but you know, I have thought about potentially competing again, but even if mine wasn't as traumatic as you, it felt traumatic with a 45-pound weight gain in 90 days and no idea, similar to you, like, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And I look at my face, like, my eyes are just dull. And I mean, again, I was sleeping. Just wild, right? And I think that I see so many women that have similar experiences, whether it be explant or just their body is fighting them with competing, and they want it so bad. And, you know, years later, they're coaching and that bodybuilding photo is still their profile photo, you know, like they just can't let it go. And so what advice do you have for people that are listening where maybe it's just kind of time to move on? Like, how do you find peace with that or find something new?
Yeah. It's hard, you know? And I think for me, for my experience, because everybody's experience is so different, right? But for my experience, all of the health issues and the injuries was a very humbling moment. And it really puts your ass in check, and it puts things into perspective, and it really forces you to go, I don't know that this is worth it. I'm not so sure that this is worth it. Because, you know, it's like, I'm just begging to be able to get up off the couch without falling down because my head's whatever, or actually taking steps on my own and not being on a freaking godforsaken scooter. You know, it's like,
scooter, man.
Yeah, God, Betty. I named her Betty. I was on her for 24 weeks. 24. I was like, okay, if you're going to be with me this long, you got to have a name. I'm not going to just scoot around on you, you know? So I think it was a very humbling moment. And I'm now grateful for that, because it really was able to kind of like put things into perspective, I think, a little bit quicker for me, and realize what's important and not important. And I think it's always going to be human nature to have a goal for aesthetics and physique and body, but it shouldn't be the first goal, and it shouldn't be the only goal. I think health, overall wellness should be the goal, and then the physique will come along with it. But transitioning into that is hard, and I think you can hang on to it for a little while, but there comes a point, and you're the only person that's going to really know that, right? There comes a point to where it's like, okay, is this working for me? Is this good for me? Am I forcing this. I think that that was the thing. And that's what kept happening for me, because I'm quite driven and a little stubborn. And so I kept trying to enforce that I was going to get back on stage because I'm a determined, driven person. I was like, no, F that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But my body kept saying, no, you're not. No, you're not. And I didn't listen to her until I did. And that's when things started to feel fully aligned. And I think that once you kind of let that go, the things that are really meant for you, or now the new chapter, will start to unfold. But you have this block until you let it go, whatever that may be, whether that's a job or school or a relationship or whatever. Like, you're blocking yourself from the things that are truly meant for you if you don't let that thing go. And sometimes you're the only person that's going to know when to let it go, but when you do, you'll feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this is slight tangent, but same topic. When I think about back to the identity, and I think about just figure out what's for you. Whenever you have a location change and you're not around the same people that know you, that to me was when it was really crazy. So like, you're somebody that has kind of seen it, even if it was maybe a post here and there. I've seen you pre-weight loss resistance, after, right? And I remember when I moved back to Texas and I joined your gym, and that was before I had lost any of the weight. And like, that was so not my body. Like, that was a foreign, I was like living in a foreign object for 2 years, and I wasn't able to focus on aesthetics. Like, I just couldn't. And so I felt like an imposter too, as like a coach and all of that, even though all of it wasn't my fault. But I remember there was one of the trainers at the gym came up to me like 6 months later and was like, hey, look, I just want to say, like, you've been busting your ass. Like, you've lost a lot of weight. And I'm like, I appreciate you. This is the story. Thank you so much. And it's like, that in first impression was what he just thought that I was, like, on a weight loss journey. You know what I mean? And it's like, there was this like missing context. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, here's kind of the background, but I appreciate you, you know? And so whatever, but you don't realize some of those things and like what you're holding on to until you kind of remove yourself from like the people you're constantly surrounded with. And it's like stepping into a new environment. Right. But I think that just to kind of wrap up that part, you know, wherever you're at in your journey for fitness, right? If you are trying to grow a business or you have other ambitions, like, in my opinion, never let competing or powerlifting or whatever it is, like, stop you from that stuff, because it's so ego driven at the end of the day. And even if it is fun, like, bodybuilding is and will always be a very selfish sport. Like, it's just for us. It's totally fine. But if you're putting that over, because I've seen relationships end because of bodybuilding. I've seen businesses crash and burn because, God forbid, you have to get your pro card. You know what I mean? And I think people really use bodybuilding as a sense of control, right? Because we're all type A psychopaths a little bit, right? And we can
100%.
we can control like because I remember when I was in TV, it was crazy and chaotic and 80-hour weeks. And now when I think about competing again, I'm like, I like my life. I don't really know if I want to do that.
No.
Pose for 8 weeks in heels.
Or,
I mean, 8 hours a week in heels. But yeah, so wherever you're at, think about that. But now I want to ask you, just from the coaching perspective, right? If somebody is, because I don't want to dissuade you, bodybuilding is a really fun sport, but I think we all have a time and place for when it serves us in our life and when it may not, right? And just making sure you're doing it for the right reasons. But let's say that you are new to the bodybuilding space, bikini in particular, because that's obviously your expertise. What advice would you give some of these posing coaches out there for just having great stage presence in 2024?
Yeah. So, you know, just like anything in life, the bodybuilding world, especially the bikini division, is forever evolving. It's forever changing. It's forever moving. And sometimes it's almost impossible to keep up with, both physically, aesthetically, and as far as posing. My philosophy behind it, which everybody has their own coaching techniques and thoughts, I think that's what makes us all individualized and what makes you connect with an individual client. I'm always all about what works for the individual. I wasn't really big on doing what was trending. I didn't believe in that. First of all, I believe in individuality and not copying something just because, the last Bikini Olympia did that. Okay, that looks great on her, but what does that look like on you? So, I'm all about that individual person. Now, of course, there is like a basic realm, like bikini one-on-one poses, but like making it your own was really important for me. As a competitor myself, but also as a coach. And to me, it was always more because I had the thoughts and the visions of this person for everything also outside of bodybuilding. So like, yes, I'm teaching you this stuff to be great on stage, but these are things that you can implement into your everyday life. And that means your own personal style and the way you walk and present yourself and hold yourself and just your own individual person. That was always really big to me. So for as far as 2024 as a coach, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Of course, do your research. What is doing right? I mean, if there's a pose that they're like, don't do it, then yes, we need to know this. Hello, like don't be teaching them things that are going to get them, discharged or whatever. But I would definitely do what's best for the individual as well. And listen to the client and what they're wanting, and try to help them with that, because they're going to be a better poser and competitor by, yes, listening to you and your knowledge, but also doing things that make them feel comfortable. That's what's going to exude their confidence. And if you are just showing them something and just doing a copy paste routine for everybody and not individualizing it, which is like, oh my God, like nails on chalkboard for me. Like I hate copy paste. It's not going to present that way.
Well, every body is different. I mean, like I remember us working on, I need to go find these videos. That's what I'm gonna do later today. You're just gonna get,
Yeah, that would be
who knows
fun.
what. But like, figuring out, okay, Taylor, you have some biceps and let's maybe like tweak your front post so you don't look like you might be stepping in figure. You know what I mean? Like there was just that
100%.
like fine line. And so to your point, like everyone has different just assets they want to bring out and highlight and things that maybe they don't. And so figuring out just like how somebody looks. And I know for, at least for us, like, even though we did a lot of online because I was in Cleveland for a majority of it, like the person hands-on was so beneficial. Like if you're listening to this, even if you're working with a phenomenal coach, like find a way to get somebody to just like touch you, because that was so helpful for me. You know what I mean? Like actually feeling that person is super helpful.
100%. I mean, hands-on, and especially with something that requires so much movement in the body and the physique. I mean, I definitely always recommend, of course, like when I was posing and stuff, I by the way, I am no longer posing. I was wearing like 20 different hats. So I had to start taking some hats off.
How long has it been?
And posing is just one of them. It will always be a part of my heart and soul. And that was a hard one to kind of put down, but I am at this time no longer posing. But I think where was I going with that? I don't know. I kind of forgot. I went on the hats.
Routines, making sure that if you're a posing coach or trying to get more clients.
Yes, whoever you are posing with, like I did do FaceTime sessions, Skype sessions online. I mean, I pose girls literally on other sides of the world, New Zealand, Australia, like you just sometimes make do. I highly recommend trying to find someone in person for posing specifically. And if you can't, then pose with somebody on FaceTime, but like you, fly out and come get an in-person session, to wherever that may be. 1,000%. I mean, it's just going to make that big of a difference. And sometimes that's what it takes for that light bulb to go off.
And anyone that thinks that sounds wild, I mean, here's the deal, like, but because that was like very, very early stages of business. I had barely done anything, so I did not have the extra money to do that. But you're already spending so much competing. Don't get up there with a subpar routine, because you're not going to win anything just because you were the hungriest or dieted the hardest or the leanest. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, to me, posing is quite literally the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I mean, and you've heard me say this time and time again in our posing sessions, but I mean, if you have a banging physique, in which most people by that point that they get on stage have some sort of rockin' physique, maybe there's things that they need to work on. I mean, I think that's inevitable, but if you can't present that good physique, then what did you do all this hard work for? Because you can make a really awesome physique look real shitty if you cannot pose it. And that is just the truth. And that's facts. And I've seen a not well-developed physique outbeat a physique just sheerly because she knew how to get up there and rock it and pose it. And so standing side by side, it's like, sure, this girl obviously looks like she should win, but she moves horribly. It's like, I've seen it. And I think it's honestly happened to me personally in some of my competing, because I by no means am meant to be a bodybuilder or was. My physique is polar opposite. I'm long, lean, lanky. I can get lean like a machine, but building, my God, it was misery for me. I cannot put muscle on. And 100% natural athlete, always have been. Extremely hard, horrible. So I relied a lot on my presentation to make this little old tiny physique next to these, muscle mommies stand out. And that's what you have to do sometimes, so it is 100% like important, if not one of the most important pieces.
Yeah. So switching gears, this is just kind of my last question for you, but because you are a gym owner and I've been to both of them, well, I guess 3 technically, if you want to consider that.
Yes.
But what advice or what do you wish you would have known that you didn't know before you opened up a gym? What do you wish someone would have told you? It can be several. Just like, I had no idea. I wish somebody would have told me that. It could be expenses. It could be whatever. I'm just curious what comes to mind.
I mean, I think it's been really hard with multiple locations. So it's like, it's kind of different now. Like, we've only ever owned one gym at a time. So this is technically our 3rd brand of gym to own. But this is the first time that we've owned multiple locations at once. And that's been difficult for as far as like nurturing one gym without forgetting another gym, and then like the same thing for the 3rd gym. So it's like giving all of the gyms like a proper amount of attention without like focusing on one. But it's so hard because it's like you have to put a little more efforts in the new one that you're building because you're trying to build it. So it's like, how do I like manage all of these locations evenly? It's like you have 3 children and you need to attend to all of them, but how do you attend to all 3? Like, at one point, one needs to be fed and the other 2 are going to be sitting back here waiting, and I don't have kids. This is just what I'm assuming. So,
disclaimer.
3 gyms, 3 babies, kind of same thing, right? Like, I don't know. So I think, how to disperse yourself without like spreading yourself too thin, and without like giving too much attention to one and not the other, and vice versa.
How do you decide what gym equipment you're going to get next?
It's literally like a wish list that Greg and I have had, and even more so him, because he was the gym owner first. That him and I have had this like list of things that we personally have used or worked out on. That is what's in our gym currently. We don't put any equipment in our gym that we haven't used personally or tried out. And so really it's just a big long list of things that we've always want and dreamed of. But then now, especially with each location, it's like, okay, Allen has XYZ. So Richardson's going to have ABC, and some of them are, we have double, but some it's really like, let's have Allen have these cool pieces. Let's have Richardson have these cool pieces, because we want our members to be able to use both locations and go, let's go to Allen for leg day. Let's go to Richardson for glutes. Let's go back to Allen for shoulder.
Literally me.
Yeah, seriously. And that is exactly how we do it. Now, of course, we always want to be adding to, but we have to be mindful of it because of space and crowding and stuff like that. So that has kind of been the goal and plan, and just kind of adding to from that big dream wish list. And of course, we always listen to our members and what they like and want and what they're craving. But sometimes we just kind of put stuff in there that we want, but we know that our members are going to love.
Is there anything in the next like 90 days that's coming that's new?
I don't think so. Not in the next 90 days. I will say, we have pre-ordered and we're currently like working on selling the bumper plates that are at Richardson. Okay. Really more so because of branding purposes, which is my job. And they're like all like not on brand. They're not black, white, or gray. They're like royal turquoise, blue, green, gray, and like whatever other color. And so we bought some new bumper plates that'll be on the way, but I don't even think that those are going to be here in the next 90 days. So we did just get some new equipment not too long ago, like 90 days ago we did.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so funny though, because I think there's a ton of gym options in like the Dallas area, but you guys have very specialty equipment. It's fun watching it grow. So, cool. And there will be a link if you guys are ever in Dallas or the DFW area to get a day pass and all of that. And I know that whenever my clients come in town, we always go. I literally sent your team an email like yesterday. So
I love it. Perfect. Yes. Yes.
That I should have asked you though, that I didn't, or any final thoughts?
I love it. I'm happy to share my journey and my story. It's been a long one, and it's been like a little bit of a roller coaster, but forever, I think, progressing, if I can say so myself. So I'm honored to be on here and share that with your audience. So thank you so much. And it was extra special to me because we have had a long relationship, posing coach and client, and then now just like you're a member of our gym, and I love having you there. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for having me.
Full circle. I know. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it. And like I said, guys, if you want to get in touch with Tawna or any of those things, hear her story. All the links are going to be below.